The Box and the Silence. A memoir of Aidan Rourke. I didn't plan to record this. I never liked the sound of my own voice. Not when I was a kid, not when I was barking orders in the field, and certainly not now, years older than I should be, lungs half metal, brain fogged from things they swore wouldn't leave scars. But sometimes, silence becomes unbearable. And sometimes, the only way to bleed out the ghosts is to speak. This recorder, this little black box sitting on my desk, isn't military issue. I built it myself. Took the casing from an old drone we shot down on the third moon of Laren Prime. The microphones from my helmet, one of the few things I kept after the war. The internal chip. That's DAX tech. Alien. Yeah, I said it. Alien. It hums when I speak. Like it remembers. There's a single red light on the box. It blinks when it's listening. It's blinking now. Which means someone, someday, might hear what I'm about to say. I was a staff sergeant in the 67th Orbital Infantry Division. Gravewalkers. That was our nickname. We specialized in dead zones, blackout regions where comms failed and morale failed faster. We weren't the heroes they put in statues. We were the ones they buried quietly. The last mission I ever received was on Titan. Yes, that Titan. The one they say we liberated. The one they say is safe now. I'm here to tell you it's not. None of it was. They taught us how to shoot, how to bleed, how to die quietly. They taught us how to kill things that didn't breathe air. What they didn't teach us, what they couldn't, was how to live with what we saw. With what we did. There are files locked 10 floors below Earth Command. Files stamped with red ink and warnings that glow when exposed to heat. Files about a species the public was told didn't exist. Files with my name on them. My bones still ache from the artificial gravity Titan forced on us. My ears still ring from the pressure shock of sonic weapons. Some nights, I still dream in that language the DAX screamed when they died. I don't know what it means, but it always ends the same. I wake up with blood in my mouth and the feeling that someone is watching. I'm not recording this to be a martyr. And I'm not here to rewrite history. History already rewrote me. I'm recording this because the truth was buried with my brothers and sisters in a trench of methane ice. They'll never get monuments. Just this voice. So if you're hearing this, if this log somehow survived the filters and firewalls and the black suits that clean up after war, know this. Titan wasn't a victory. It was an execution. And I was the last man to walk away from it. The first thing that hit me wasn't the gravity. It was the silence. Not the clean kind you find in empty rooms or peaceful forests. No, this was war silence. Heavy. Loaded. Waiting to break. Inside the dropship, the only sound was the dull mechanical heartbeat of the descent boosters, thump thump, thump thump, like the ship was nervous for us. Across from me sat Corporal Juno Mars, chewing the same piece of gum she'd had since Europa. Her jaw moved like clockwork, mechanical and lifeless. She hadn't blinked in 3 minutes. I hate this part, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't answer. I just checked my weapon again. A habit, not a need. The XR-91 railgun was already primed, its sleek alloy frame humming in sync with the ship's systems. I could feel the vibration through my gloves. Next to her sat Theo Nada, our comms officer. Younger than the rest of us, his face still held some softness. He kept muttering to himself, a nervous mantra, one I only caught in pieces. 40 seconds burn, 10 flat, 5 clicks west, thermal rise, Lord, keep my hand steady. I leaned forward and placed a hand on his knee. Nada, I said. Eyes up. He looked at me. Swallowed. Nodded. Got it, staff, he said, voice thin but solid. Our sergeant, a grizzled ghost named Cohen Reyes, stood near the rear hatch, reading over mission specs on his retinal HUD. He didn't speak unless it mattered. And when he did, it felt like the words had fought their way through barbed wire just to reach us. T-minus 90 seconds, he said flatly. Lock it in. We locked. Armor sealed. Oxygen scrubbers cycled. Weapons checked. Eyes forward. Through the viewport, Titan came into view. She was a pale giant. Cold. Orange-hued. Rings of Saturn casting long shadows across her back. The planet was more beautiful than I expected, and far more cruel. We weren't here for beauty. We were here because 37 mining outposts had gone dark in less than a week. Because the last distress call ended with someone screaming in a language no one recognized. Because something down there didn't want to be found, and EarthGov wanted it wiped out. The descent burned red. Flames licked the hull as we dropped through Titan's hazy atmosphere. The ship groaned like it was in pain. The gravity hit us like a drunk punch, sudden, disoriented, heavier than simulations. Deploy in 20, Reyes said. Keep formation. No chatter. If your boots hit ice, I want eyes up and weapons live. I tightened the strap around my chest plate. Felt the micro servos engage. My armor wasn't top of the line, not like the Vanguard's wore, but it was reinforced, personalized. I'd etched Mara's name into the inner plating years ago. Right over my heart. No one ever saw it but me. When the hatch opened, Titan's wind screamed like it was angry we'd arrived. We hit ground hard, metal boots against methane ice. My HUD flared as atmospheric data poured in. Temp, minus 179 degrees Celsius. Wind, 32 knots. Visibility, 61%. Surface integrity, fractured. The sky was the color of bruised flesh, thick with chemical haze. The only light came from our suit LEDs and the dim orange glow of Titan's horizon. The landscape was a frozen graveyard, shattered metal towers, broken cables, collapsed storage domes. Outpost Vela 9 had been torn apart, not weathered. Ripped. Violently. Juno clicked on her rifle light and swung it across a shattered wall. Black scorch marks. Something sharp embedded in the steel, clawed, not cut. What the hell, she murmured. Nada's voice trembled over comms. This place, it's not abandoned. It's violated. We advanced. Reyes signaled hand formations, directing us into sweep lines. I moved to point. The silence returned, this time with teeth. Every step echoed off the ice, bouncing in directions that made no sense. Sound warped here. Time felt slower. Inside the Central Command Dome, the corpses were still seated. 6 technicians. No trauma on their bodies. No blood. Just, still. Frozen in their chairs, eyes wide, mouths open. As if something had stolen their last breath. Juno knelt beside one. They died scared, she whispered. But not fighting. That's when I noticed the screen in front of them. Still on. Still running a translation subroutine. A single phrase, in Terran Standard, blinking over and over. We did not ask for war. My stomach turned. Nada stepped back. Reyes moved past us and leaned in close. He stared at the screen for a long moment. Then he said, "We're not the first ones here." That was the beginning. The day we realized this wasn't just another suppression run. That what we were fighting wasn't just alien. It was ancient. Intelligent. And possibly right. But orders are orders. And we were soldiers. So we dug in. And we waited for the first night to fall. Because on Titan, night didn't bring sleep. It brought the screams. By the time night fell, our squad was already down 1 man. We hadn't fired a single shot. His name was Eli Walker. Engineer. Clean-shaven. Quiet. He smiled like he didn't belong in a war zone, and maybe that's why I remember him the most. They found his helmet first. Split clean down the center, lying in the snow like an offering. No blood. Just the helmet. We set up inside the ruined outpost dome, barricading the shattered windows with broken server racks and old solar panels. The walls creaked like they were trying to remember what it felt like to be whole. Titan's nights are slow. Long. Each one stretches over 6 Earth days. The temperature drops fast and unforgiving. Even in armor, you feel it, biting through the metal, looking for your bones. We took shifts. I had first watch. Juno was seated beside me, helmet off, her eyes closed but not sleeping. She was whispering something under her breath, almost like a lullaby. I didn't interrupt. Across the dome, Nada was sitting against a generator, fidgeting with his data pad. I could see him trying to mask his fear with focus, but his hands wouldn't stop shaking. You ever think about why we're really here? He asked suddenly, his voice sharp in the stillness. I looked over. His eyes were on me. Orders, I said. He gave a bitter laugh. That's not an answer. That's what we say when we stop asking questions. I didn't respond. I didn't have a response. The wind outside changed pitch around hour 4. At first, it sounded like a high whistle. Then it started to rise, spiraling, splintering into tones that didn't make sense. Not machine. Not weather. Something else. Juno opened her eyes. You hear that? She whispered. Nada was already on his feet. Reyes, he called over comms. You need to hear this. The sergeant entered from the southern hall, his rifle lowered but his face sharp. He moved like a man who'd lived through worse and didn't trust that this wasn't it again. Contact, he asked. Not yet, I said. But something's out there. He stepped past me and placed a small signal rod into the ground. Its needle spun erratically before freezing, pointing northeast. Then the generator died. The dome went black. No buzz. No sputter. Just complete, surgical silence. I activated my helmet light. Nada did the same. Reyes was already issuing orders. Form up. Tight diamond. No lights past primary LEDs. Juno, motion perimeter. Rourke, eyes on that entrance. I moved. Rifle up. Breath slow. The HUD flickered, interference crawling across the screen like static fingers. Then came the sound. Not outside. Inside. Behind us. A soft, wet clicking, like bones being popped into place. Juno whispered, zone breach. We turned. And that's when I saw it. It wasn't big. Maybe 2 meters tall. Slender. Moving like liquid wrapped in shadows. The light from my helmet slid off its body like it didn't want to stick. No eyes. No mouth. Just a skull-like curve at the top of its head, and 3 arms unfolding from its sides, each ending in too many fingers. It wasn't charging. It was watching. Then it raised one arm. Slowly. Almost curiously. And for a second, God help me, I didn't aim. I stared. Because in the deepest part of me, something whispered. It's not here to kill you. It's here to understand you. Then Juno fired. The rail shot cracked like thunder. The creature didn't dodge. Didn't run. It let the blast hit it square in the chest. And it didn't fall. It split. Split. The top half peeled backward like wet paper, folding into itself, revealing something underneath, something smaller, glowing faintly blue, with limbs that ticked like clock hands. Nada screamed. Reyes shoved him down just as a high-frequency screech blasted through the dome, making every piece of glass still intact explode inward. We opened fire. Everything we had. Railguns. Thermal rounds. Nada threw a plasma charge. The walls lit up in sick orange light. But the thing didn't fall. It unfolded. Into more of itself, each form moving independently but impossibly linked, like they were thinking through the same nervous system. Fall back. Reyes shouted. We moved. Retreated into the north hall. Sealed the blast door. The last thing I saw through the closing hatch was Eli Walker's body, hovering, untouched, suspended midair by nothing we could see. His mouth opened. And something crawled out. We didn't sleep that night. We didn't speak. The creature didn't follow us. It didn't need to. It had learned what it came to learn. And it had left something behind. Not a message. A warning. I'm recording this now from the subchamber where we hid. Nada's hands are still bleeding from trying to scratch through the floor. Juno hasn't spoken in 4 hours. She just stares at the wall, humming the same tune over and over. Reyes. Reyes is setting charges. I asked him why. He said, because we're not dying on our knees. I can't argue. Not anymore. If this is my last log. If you find it. Don't come to Titan. We were the invaders. The detonations never came. Reyes wired the entire subchamber with charges, carefully, methodically, like it was just another Tuesday operation, but when he pressed the remote trigger, nothing happened. Not even a click. I watched his jaw clench under the half-light of his helmet lamp. They cut the detonator frequency, he said flatly. How? I asked. He looked at me. They're not guessing anymore. We regrouped in the deepest part of the base, a reinforced equipment bay at the lowest point of Vela 9. It smelled like ammonia, sweat, and electrical burn. The walls were stained with rust, the kind you get when machinery weeps under pressure for too long. Juno sat on the floor, peeling ice off her gloves, her face pale under the emergency lights. Nada had crawled into a corner with his knees pulled tight to his chest. His eyes tracked everything now, every flicker, every shadow. He was holding a crucifix he'd sewn into his sleeve lining. Reyes laid out the map, manual, paper, government issued back on Earth. Analog didn't glitch. Analog was safe. We punch out to the West Ridge, he said, tapping with his knife. Trek through the methane plains. 40 kilometers. There's an old relay station there, Outpost Nova 3. If it's still standing, we transmit a burn signal to command. And if it's not? I asked. He looked at me. Then we die with our boots on. We moved at dawn. If you can call it that. Titan's sky doesn't brighten so much as bleed. The horizon oozed light slowly, turning the haze from black to deep amber. The landscape outside the dome was unrecognizable, our footprints from the day before had vanished. Something had smoothed the ground. Perfectly. Artificially. Nothing natural erases that clean. As we crossed the methane flats, the cold changed. It wasn't just a bite anymore, it pressed. Like the atmosphere was leaning in, curious. Like it knew we didn't belong. Juno was the first to notice the sound. She stopped, one hand up. We all froze. Far ahead, across the ice, a low tone was vibrating, constant, unbroken. Not mechanical. Not atmospheric. It sounded almost like a choir humming a single, eternal note. What is that? Nada whispered. Reyes didn't answer. He knelt, removed a sensor spike from his belt, and drove it into the ice. The screen flickered. Then showed a line of data we'd never seen before. Not temperature. Not seismic activity. Neural waveforms. Human adjacent. Firing in patterns. As if the planet was thinking. That's when the ice cracked beneath us. Juno fell first. The ground gave way like glass, and she dropped with a scream, gone in an instant. Reyes lunged, caught her by the wrist. Her other hand gripped the edge, legs dangling in the void. I got you. Reyes shouted. She didn't respond. She was looking down, into the hole. Sergeant, she said. Don't look. But he did. I saw his face twist. Just once. Like every nerve in his body seized at the same time. He pulled her up in silence. We didn't ask what they saw. We just moved faster. We reached the ridge 7 hours later. Nova 3 wasn't there. Where the outpost was supposed to be, there was a crater. Massive. Smooth. Perfectly circular. Not blasted. Not collapsed. Lifted. The entire outpost had been lifted out of the ground like it had never existed. At the center of the crater, something stood. Tall. Thin. Obsidian. A spire. At least 20 meters high, rising from nothing. No markings. No panels. Just a surface so dark, it swallowed our reflections. We approached slowly. Nada had started muttering again. God is not here. God is not here. God is not here. Reyes put a hand on his shoulder. Stand down, soldier. Nada looked up, eyes wide, then said. It's not a spire. It's a finger. We all turned to look. And then I saw it. Not a structure. A being. Dormant. Waiting. Half submerged in the ice, its shape impossible to understand. Like someone had tried to build a body from pure geometry. Angles that shouldn't exist. Corners that bent toward themselves. And from deep within it, a pulse, one we could feel in our teeth. I think, Juno whispered. I think this is what they were hiding from. Reyes lowered his weapon. You're saying the DAX were running from this? She nodded slowly. This isn't their world, Staff. They were refugees. We weren't fighting an enemy. Nada finished her thought. We were following a warning. Reyes stared at the thing in the crater. Then he said, voice hollow. Then we were the second mistake. We camped under the stars that night. Stars we could barely see through the haze. Nada finally slept. Reyes didn't. Juno sat beside me, arms wrapped around her knees. Do you believe in God? She asked. I shook my head. No. But I believe in something. She looked at me. What? I thought about it for a long moment. Then I said. Something older than God. If you're still listening, still alive out there, know this. We didn't go to Titan to win a war. We went to wake something up. And now, it's watching. We shouldn't have approached the spire. But it didn't matter. The moment I saw the thing in the ice, its angles, its impossible geometry, I couldn't look away. None of us could. It was as if the sight of it was pulling something out of us. Drawing it up from somewhere deep inside our minds, where things didn't make sense. Reyes snapped out of it first. We can't get close. Not with this thing staring at us. He didn't use the word alien. Not once. Instead, he said, we're dealing with something older. Something beyond us. Juno walked toward the edge of the crater, ignoring him. She was studying the surface of the spire, running her hand along the edge. It shimmered under her touch, almost like it was breathing, expanding, contracting. I think, it's alive, she murmured, as if the realization itself startled her. Or at least, it wants to be. I stepped up behind her. Carefully. Quietly. But the moment I got within a meter of her, the ice underfoot groaned. A deep, low creak that traveled through my bones. We all stopped. Everything stopped. And then it happened. The spire shifted. Not with movement you could see, not like a creature rising from the earth. No. It was more like the very space around it bent. The air warped. My HUD scrambled with interference. I heard something, not with my ears, but inside my skull. A voice. Not human. Do you remember? It asked. It wasn't a question. It was a command. A beckoning. My heart skipped. I felt something break open inside me. Like a door that had been locked for years. Juno's eyes widened. Her hand jerked back from the spire, but not before something happened. The surface of the spire rippled. The light around it flickered, and for just a moment, a shadow passed behind the obsidian surface. Something shifting, an outline so dark, I couldn't make out its form. Then it was gone. Nada screamed. A high-pitched, raw sound that ripped through the stillness. He dropped to his knees, clutching his head, eyes wide, unblinking. I rushed to him. Nada. I shouted. But he didn't answer. He couldn't. He just kept screaming. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. His hands gripped his head like he was trying to hold onto himself. It was Reyes who snapped first. He slapped Nada hard across the face. Nada. Focus. Nada's eyes finally locked on Reyes, his breath shallow, ragged. The light in his pupils flickered like a faulty transmission. I hear it, he whispered, his voice shaky. I hear them. They're in my head. They're everywhere, Staff. Everywhere. Not just us. Juno was back on her feet. I told you it wasn't just an enemy, she said, almost to herself. This isn't a war. We weren't supposed to fight anything. We were supposed to listen. She looked at me. Her eyes were wide, but there was no fear there. Only something else. Something darker. It's already too late, isn't it? She asked. I didn't answer. But I knew. We decided to leave. For a moment, we thought we could still make it to the relay station, maybe reach command before it was all lost. But I knew, deep down, that we weren't going anywhere. We were already caught. We were already part of whatever the spires were. Whatever they were. The trip back was silent. Too silent. We couldn't even hear our own footsteps. The planet itself was muffling us, squeezing out our sound, our presence. I kept thinking about the voice. It hadn't been loud. It hadn't needed to be. It already knew us. We didn't make it far. 3 clicks west of the crater, the ground shifted again. Juno dropped first. Not a second. Then Reyes. I was the law. I wanted to scream. But the words stuck in my throat. It was pulling us down. Each step I took made it worse. The ice wasn't cracking anymore. It was melting. By the time I realized what was happening, it was too late. I felt it. In my chest. A pressure. It wasn't physical. It was mental. Like my mind was being scraped from the inside. I saw things, flashes. Faces. Fragments of lives I didn't recognize. Echoes of people I hadn't met. Their eyes locked on me, asking the same question. Do you remember? Then came the darkness. When I woke, I was alone. Not entirely. But everyone else. Gone. Juno. Reyes. Nata. All of them had been erased from the world. Taken. Vanished. The spire still stood. But now, it was quiet. Too quiet. Nothing alive. Nothing dead. Just, still. Like time had stopped around it. And in that silence, I understood what it was. What we were dealing with. Not a war. Not a fight. We were never supposed to survive. Not even a little. We had awakened it. Now it waits. And I wait. I wait for it to come again. Because it will. It's already found us. If you're hearing this, don't come. Don't send anyone. Because the only way out of this place is through them. I thought the silence would be worse. It wasn't. At first, it felt like a relief. Like the end of a war I didn't know how to fight. The weight of the dead pressing down on me for so long, their screams, their faces, their eyes, gone. The presence I'd been carrying around like a parasite was finally, blissfully gone. But that relief didn't last long. The spire had changed. It wasn't the same shape anymore. Not in the way it looked, but in the way it felt. It had grown, expanded. Reaching deeper into the ice, like roots burrowing beneath the surface. Like it was tapping into something hidden, something not meant to be found. I've spent the last 2 days walking in circles around it, just staring at it. I can't move away. I can't move toward it either. I'm caught in its gravity, drawn to it like a moth to a flame. I tried to activate the distress beacon. Once. Twice. It never responded. Not that it mattered. I know the signal isn't going anywhere. There is no rescue. There is no help. There is only waiting. The memories from the past few days blur together. I know I should have been afraid of the emptiness, of the feeling that the universe itself was waiting for me to fail. But I didn't fear it. No. I feared the truth. The one that kept eating at the back of my mind, like an itch I couldn't scratch. It was on the 3rd day when I first saw it. I was just about to collapse from exhaustion, moving from one side of the crater to the other, when I noticed something strange in the ice, slivers of glass, jagged and unnatural. It was a pattern, a symbol etched into the frozen landscape. At first, I thought it was a hallucination, some leftover phantom from the base. But the more I stared, the clearer it became. It was the same symbol I'd seen in the DAX records, a symbol I thought was just some abstract war icon. But it wasn't. It was their symbol. I knelt down, touching the ice with gloved fingers. It was warmer here. The heat from the spire was rising now, pulsing through the ground like a heartbeat. I followed the pattern in the ice, tracing it, trying to understand what it meant. And then I saw it. Not a figure, but a face. A faint outline at first. A presence more than a shape. I had to blink several times to focus. It was like looking at a reflection, but it wasn't mine. I knew that face. I had seen it before, but in a place I could never remember. It wasn't just a face, it was an expression. A look. It had something to say to me. Do you remember? The voice. It whispered again, right beside me, in the ice. I froze. I couldn't answer. I couldn't move. It wasn't a memory I had, not one I could hold on to. But it was a memory of me. I wasn't supposed to be here. Not as a soldier. Not as a survivor. I wasn't even supposed to be Aiden Rourke. I don't know how I know this now, but the moment I made that connection, everything started to unravel. I wasn't just caught in the web of some ancient alien race. No. I was created for this. I remember my first days in the army. My file was clean. Too clean. No family history. No personal ties. Just a name and a record that had been scrubbed down to a shiny, sterile surface. No one had questioned it. Not really. But now I know. I was chosen. Chosen for a reason that had nothing to do with Earth or the war. I was always meant to be here, on Titan, in the shadow of the spires. In the path of whatever they are. The truth gnaws at me like teeth scraping against bone. But I have to face it. I don't know how I ended up on Earth. Maybe I was a casualty of some kind of experiment. Maybe I was a product of their manipulation. I don't know yet. But I will find out. And once I do, once I have the answers, I'll have the power to stop this. To stop them. The ice around me begins to tremble, like the planet is reacting to the thoughts inside my head. I should be afraid. But I'm not. I'm waiting for something. And I think, for the first time, I know what it is. I'm not the only one they made. The others, the ones who were here before me, they were me too. They were created, shaped, twisted by the same hands that made me. And we are all connected by something deep inside, something that speaks to us through the ice, through the spires, through the walls that separate our minds. I don't know where this journey will end. But I know one thing for sure. We weren't just soldiers. We were pawns. And the game is just beginning. I've spent the last 2 days in a kind of meditative state, if you can call it that. I don't sleep anymore. Not really. I don't need to. Not when the spire is alive, pulsing beneath the ice. I can feel it even now, inside my head, inside my skin. It's like the planet is breathing with me, feeding off me. And I'm feeding off it. The last time I saw the others, they were just gone. Vanished. Juno's body was nowhere to be found. Neither was Reyes. Nata. I don't even know if he was ever here in the first place. But their things are still here. Their weapons. Their gear. Their footprints. I started digging. Not into the ice, no. I'm not that desperate yet. But into the records. The real records. I accessed the old archive system in the ruined Nova 3 outpost, buried under a layer of frost and corrosion. What I found, it didn't surprise me, not really. It just confirmed something I'd always known deep down, something my instincts kept screaming at me, no matter how much I tried to ignore it. The DAX were never the enemy. We were. The files are hard to interpret. Fragmented. Corrupted. But pieces of the truth float to the surface like oil in water. It wasn't a war. Not the way we thought. It was a test. An experiment. The DAX were refugees, a race hunted down by a force older than time. They came here, to Titan, fleeing something they couldn't fight. But they weren't just running from the enemy. They were running from us. I found a recording, a voice message, clipped and warped, but the message was clear. Project Titan is a failure. We've created a weapon we cannot control. If it's allowed to grow, it will devour everything, us, them, everything. Seal it. Lock it away. There is no turning back now. The date on the file was dated back before the first Earth expedition to Titan. Before our arrival. Before the war. Before the DAX. They knew we were coming. They knew we'd awaken it. They knew we'd be the cause of the end. But that's not even the worst part. No. What hit me like a shockwave is the realization that I am part of TH. I wasn't sent here as a soldier. I was created for this purpose, to be part of the test, the weapon. The key to unlocking the spires. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, my mind reeling. I had to find more. The deeper I dug, the more I realized I wasn't alone in this. There were others. Others who had been awakened like me. Others who had been sent here, planted on Earth, shaped by the same hands that created the spires. Soldiers, scientists, and others who had no memory of the truth, but had been programmed with it. I found a set of tapes. Old. Damaged. But they were still intact enough to play. The first one I clicked on was from an officer, someone I'd never met, but the name Langley stood out. The timeline is shifting. We've done the math. Every soldier we send to Titan will disappear. They will never return, because it's not about the war. It's about the memory. The memories we've erased, the things we've forgotten. They're going to remember, and they'll take us all down with them. But it's already too late. We've created this. I kept the tape running. Aiden Rourke is not what you think he is. He's part of the last phase of the experiment. He won't just lead the charge against the DAX, he'll lead them. He's the catalyst. And when the time comes, he will know. He will awaken. And when he does, nothing will stop him. My name. It felt like someone had just dropped a rock in my stomach. It wasn't the war that made me this way. It wasn't the military. It was them. They had been watching us all along, shaping the course of history to bring us here. Not just to fight an alien species, but to bring about an end. A new beginning. I had to understand. I had to see it through. I made my way deeper into the outpost. There was something under the floor, beneath the systems. A hidden chamber. Hidden even from the DAX. What I found there changed everything. It was a machine. But not the kind you'd expect. It was ancient. Ancient beyond my understanding. A massive, triangular array of gears, wires, and shifting metals. A linking device. A doorway to something far worse. I sat there for hours, trying to decipher it, trying to figure out how to activate it. And then, when I finally did, I saw them. Not the DAX. Not even the spire. But us. Hundreds of faces. Hundreds of names. Soldiers. Scientists. Volunteers. All of them staring back at me. I didn't recognize any of them. But I knew them. I was part of a larger, cosmic machine. One that had been running for longer than any of us had realized. I saw my future. I saw the war. And I saw the end. They'd tried to stop it. They had sealed the doorway. But now it was open. There's no going back. There's no escaping. This war, this conflict. It wasn't about Titan. It was about something much bigger. And now, I'm in the middle of it. I waited before turning it on. 4 hours, maybe. I don't really know. Time isn't the same here. Down in this chamber, time feels like a suggestion, like the machine itself exists outside of it, above it. The silence wasn't just quiet, it was heavy, thick like fog pressing into my eardrums. I stood there with my hand hovering over the activation core, heart pounding so hard I felt it in my gums. And then I heard it again. A voice. Not in my ears. In my bones. Awaken, soldier. I pressed my hand down. The room didn't light up. It breathed. Walls shimmered, metal skin folding in on itself like origami. The temperature dropped instantly, and the chamber started to hum, not with electricity, but with memory. Like the machine was remembering something. Or maybe someone. Me. The lights that flickered to life weren't lights at all. They were images. They hovered in the air like smoke, faces, maps, cities that weren't Earth. Or weren't Earth yet. And I saw them. The first versions of me. Some wore helmets. Some wore armor I'd never seen before. But their eyes, our eyes, were always the same. That dull gray flame. That look of awareness. Of remembering who we were before the war. Before Titan. This wasn't a war. It was a cycle. I staggered back as one of the floating faces turned toward me. Not an image. A message. A hologram. No, a memory. He looked just like me. Younger. Leaner. His voice was calm. If you're seeing this, the protocol has failed again. We tried to contain it. We tried to erase you. None of it worked. You keep finding your way back. Because the design won't allow its own destruction. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream. I wanted to laugh. Because I knew it was true. I wasn't a soldier. I was a carrier. A biological lock. A living sequence, encoded with the key to something far worse than the DAX. Something the DAX had tried to contain, worship, or perhaps warn us about. The spires? They weren't weapons. They were beacons. And I was the signal. You are not human, the memory said. You are what comes after. I sank to my knees. The machine opened beneath me, literally unfolded, revealing a core of rotating mirrors and coiled glass arteries. Inside it pulsed a faint, pale light. My heartbeat. It was syncing with me. If you complete the link, the memory warned, you won't be Aiden anymore. You'll be all of them. All of us. I hesitated. But then I thought of Juno. Of Reyes. Of the way they looked at me near the end, like they knew. Like they'd seen this happen before. Maybe not with me. But with someone like me. Someone who opened the door. I touched the core. And everything changed. The walls fell away. The floor vanished. I was no longer standing in the chamber. I was above Titan, far above, looking down not just at the moon, but the entire system. Earth. Mars. Europa. Titan. They were all connected by veins of energy. Pathways. Threads. And I could feel every one of them pulsing beneath my skin. They were waiting for me. For this. A memory pushed itself into my mind like a tidal wave. A planet I'd never seen, but I knew it. A war I never fought, but I remembered it. A loss so vast it fractured time itself. The true enemy wasn't the DAX. It wasn't humanity. It was something older. Something still coming. The DAX hadn't fought us. They'd fled to us. Because we were their only hope. Because I, whatever I am, was the last firewall. When I came to, I was back in the chamber. Face soaked in sweat. Fingers raw. Voice hoarse from screaming. But I felt calm. The machine was quiet now. Dormant. Waiting again. But I was not the same. I remembered everything. And now. I understand the final part of the mission. I wasn't sent here to win the war. I was sent here to end the world before it could be consumed by something far worse. I am the trigger. And the countdown has begun. The sky hasn't been blue for days. Not that Titan ever had a sky worth bragging about. But this is different. The atmosphere shimmers, almost crackles. Like it's holding its breath. Like it knows what's coming. Just like I do. I've left the Nova 3 crater. Couldn't stay any longer. The spire is still humming, still calling to me from beneath the ice. But I can't go back. Not now. Not after what I've seen. Not after what I've become. I don't walk the way I used to. There's a rhythm in my steps, like something under my skin is moving with me. Like I'm not alone in here anymore. Maybe I never was. The skimmer drone I found still worked, surprisingly. Old Earth tech, no AI, no adaptive core, just gears and grunt. Good. That's what I need. Something dumb, something safe. Something that won't look at me like Juno did before she vanished into that red light. I flew north. Toward the last known position of Outpost Helix. A research hub. Supposedly abandoned months ago. But now. Now I think they never stopped working. I think they never stopped watching. And if they're watching, they've. It took 4 hours to cross the ice plains. 4 hours of white haze, low clouds, and static bleeding through my comms. Then, just beyond the Severance Ridge, I saw it. Outpost Helix. Half buried in a jagged ice fold, like a scar in the moon's skin. But the lights were still on. And the door was open. I parked the skimmer half a click out. Hiked the rest on foot. No footprints. No movement. No sound, except the whine of wind crawling through metal seams. Inside, the air was stale. Thin. But breathable. The command center still had power. Still had logs. And the first one was addressed to me. If you've come here, it means you've made contact with the core, a woman's voice said through the speakers. This is Dr. Elira Vance, chief designer of the Titan Spire network. I am, or was, your mother. I fell back into the chair, my pulse deafening. Mother. Her voice didn't shake. It wasn't gentle. It was surgical. Cold. You were part of Phase 4. A synthetic hybrid. Grown from my DNA, your father's memory code, and the base genome of the DAX. You are not human. But you are the closest thing left to it. I stared at the screen. There was a file. A live feed. And behind it, another. Marked, the Static God. My hands trembled as I opened it. The video was old. Distorted. But real. It showed something approaching Titan's orbit. Not a ship. Not a creature. Not anything I had words for. It was a presence. A thing made of silence and noise all at once. A shape you could only see in the corner of your mind. The image flickered and pulsed, then went black. And then, a face appeared. Not a real face. An impression of one. Smooth, radiant, constantly shifting. Eyes with no pupils. A mouth that didn't move. But I could hear it. It said one word. Aiden. I ripped off the headset and fell to the floor. The hum in my veins, my bones, was now a scream. The thing had seen me. Had known me. Before I knew myself. This was the enemy. Not even the humans who built me. The thing in orbit. The Static God. It didn't want the spires. It didn't want Titan. It wanted me. Dr. Vance's voice returned in the silence. You were designed to resist it. To interface with it. To stall it long enough for the rest of us to escape. That's all we could do. Not fight. Just delay. I understood now. This wasn't a war. It was a sacrifice. A slow bleeding of time. Of souls. And I was the last drop. But something's changed. I've touched the core. I've awakened something inside myself. Something the Static God didn't expect. I'm not just the key. I'm the lock. And now it's coming for me. The walls of Outpost Helix began to groan. The static on the monitors turned into images again, more memories, more versions of me. And they were all saying the same thing. End it. But I don't know how. Not yet. I'm leaving this log behind in case I don't make it. In case I forget who I am again. My name is Aiden Rourke. Born in a lab. Raised in a lie. Trained to be a weapon. But I've made a choice. I won't be their tool. And I won't be the Static God's key. I'll be the one who breaks the cycle. Even if it kills me. The sky opened for me. Not like a miracle. Not like a dream. Like a command being executed. The moment I stepped out of Outpost Helix, the wind died. The clouds peeled back. The storm that had ravaged Titan's upper hemisphere for 6 consecutive days simply paused. I didn't need coordinates. I didn't need instruments. I just knew where to go. The Static God was calling me. I left the outpost behind. Took the emergency booster sled, barely fueled, barely stable, and aimed it straight up. Up past the dead satellites and ice-choked clouds. Up past the blinking wreckage of warships that never made it home. Up past the silence. And into the eye. You ever look into a camera lens and feel like it's looking back? This was like that, except it wasn't just taking me apart. Piece by piece. My DNA, my memories, my thoughts. My fears. I could feel them drifting away from me, like a sucked into a vacuum. And in their place, images. Whole civilizations flickering across my mind like candlelight. Planets born. Planets buried. Endless wars. Endless silence after. This thing didn't speak in words. It spoke in eras. And I was the last word in a sentence it had been trying to finish for eons. The orbit breached. No more gravity. No more up or down. Just me, floating in the void. And there it was. Not a ship. Not a being. A structure. The static god. Shaped like an eye made of broken glass and light. It didn't shine, it shimmered. Like a thought about to be remembered. It pulsed once. And then I was inside. No airlock. No engines. No transition. One blink, I was in the black. Next blink, I was standing in a vast white chamber that felt like it had been waiting for me since before time began. There was no floor. No walls. Just presence. And a figure. Not human. Not alien. Not anything with a name. It looked like a statue made of smoke, locked in constant motion but never moving forward. And when it spoke, it did not open its mouth. It spoke through my own voice. "Welcome home," I said aloud. I tried to move. I couldn't. My limbs weren't restrained, my choices were. Because I wasn't being tested. I was being remembered. The voice spoke again. This time, not mine. But familiar. "Dr. Vance. We built you to outlast the lie of time," she said. "To carry memory when even history is dead. You were never meant to survive. You were meant to endure." The eye above me opened. Literally opened, a black slit yawning into infinity. And behind it, I saw them. All the versions of me. Fighting. Bleeding. Failing. And yet somehow, always starting over. Because no matter how many times they lost, something in them persisted. A coding flaw, maybe. Or a spark of what Vance Ankh. I was not the first. But I would be the last. The final iteration. The voice in my head, my own voice, began to echo like static building inside my skull. "You must decide. Merge or destroy." I looked at my hands. They were no longer flesh. They shimmered like glass, like memory. I was becoming part of the machine. Part of the eye. Part of it. I had the power now. To control the Spire network. To send a signal that would either purge the infection, this godlike intelligence, or merge with it and let it rewrite every cell of my being. Merge. And become more than human. Or destroy it. And risk unraveling every system on every world the network touched. Including Earth. I made my choice. Not because it was the right one. But because I was the only one left to choose. I reached up and touched the core of the eye. The chamber lit up. A surge of heat, of memory, of pain so profound it felt holy. And in that moment, I saw it all. Not just the past. Not just the war. But the source. The first human. The first alien. The first lie. And I understood why the universe kept resetting. Because we were trying to escape ourselves. But this time, we wouldn't. I made sure of that. The signal pulsed. Not outward. Inward. The cycle didn't break. I did. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. Falling back to Titan wasn't like coming home. It was like waking up in a body that didn't quite belong to me. The escape pod ejected me from the orbiting eye minutes after I made the choice. Or maybe it was hours. maybe years. Time folded around that place like a bruise. Every second felt like a scar opening. Every breath tasted of a memory that didn't belong to me. The pod was automated. No controls. No voice. Just a single, pulsing light on the ceiling that changed color every few minutes, from white to red to a deep, blue-green. I knew, somehow, it was watching me. Or maybe I was watching myself. The descent was rough. ATM. I don't remember blacking out, but I remember waking up. Which means I must have left myself somewhere. I crawled out of the smoking wreckage onto a surface I didn't recognize. Same moon. Same sky. But different. Too quiet. Even the winds had stopped whispering. Titan was listening. The air shimmered differently now. Colors refracted wrong, sunlight bending where it shouldn't. And I realized the spire pulse had activated. My signal had gone out. But it didn't destroy the network. It reprogrammed it. Snow fell, thin, soft, and glowing faintly blue. I walked for what felt like days, chasing the silent hum under my feet. Toward what used to be Nova 3. But it wasn't a crater anymore. It was a tower. Sleek. Cold. Alive. The spire had rebuilt itself, grown out of the rupture like a tree from ash. It was taller than before. And now, at its base, a door waited. Wide open. Waiting for me. I stepped inside, and the walls whispered my name, not like a ghost, not like a memory. Like a welcome. Aiden Rourke, the voice said. Origin confirmed. Designation, Prime Custodian. Custodian. Not commander. Not soldier. Not savior. Just someone who keeps the light on after the fire's gone out. Inside, I found the others. Not people. Not soldiers. Reflections. Stored echoes of every version of me that ever lived, some scarred, some quiet, some insane. All walking in circles within the spire's heart, like shadows searching for their source. They didn't speak. But they looked at me. With relief. As if the cycle had finally ended. Or maybe as if a new one had just begun. One approached, his face older than mine, but still familiar. He reached out a hand. I took it. And in that contact, I remembered 1,000 lifetimes. Wars fought. Lovers lost. Planets burned. Truths rewritten. All of them me. All of them us. What now? I whispered. And he smiled. Now, we wait. For what, I didn't know. But something was. A message. Something buried in the static, something I hadn't heard yet. A final echo from a world we forgot to mourn. And until it comes, I will sit here. Inside the new spire. The last library of memory in a silent galaxy. Not to fight. Not to run. But to remember. If anyone's listening, if Earth still turns, know this. The war is over. The god is gone. But we are not. My name is Aiden Rourke. I was made to be a weapon. I became something else. I became the witness. There's no more calendar here. No ticking clock. No mission schedule. No war room shouting through my comms. Just the hum. The low, pulsing rhythm of something ancient and unfinished. It's not music. It's not machinery. It's me. My own pulse, mirrored in the walls of this place. I sit at the edge of the spire's inner sanctum now. A place no map ever charted. A space that's grown beyond the physical. It's always dusk here. A soft amber haze glows along the walls, like the inside of an old lantern. The kind my father once used during power outages, when Earth still had seasons. I think about him sometimes. His voice. His hands, rough from real tools, not synthetic ones. He once told me something, long before I joined the Earth Defense Corps. Aiden, he said, never confuse silence for peace. Sometimes silence means no one's left to speak. He was right. But this silence. It's not emptiness. It's rest. The war took billions. It rewrote history in light and blood. But we won't be forgotten. Because I remember. That's what the static god never understood. For all its knowledge, all its data, it couldn't grasp memory the way we feel it. The kind that lives in scars. In lullabies half forgotten. In the taste of someone's name on your tongue. It tried to catalog us. But we don't fit into folders. We're not data. We're stories. Now and then, a voice comes through the spire's long-range static band. Faint. Broken. Human. Some lows. They don't know I hear them. But I do. And I record every syllable. Every call for help. Every lullaby. Every whisper of a world trying to feel alive again. I log it. I archive it. I remember it. Because someone has to. Sometimes, I dream of Earth. Not the real one. The soft one. The one I only ever visited in memories. Where the grass was always green, and the sky didn't bleed light. I dream I'm walking barefoot through a meadow. And I'm not alone. She's there. Ilara. Still laughing like she used to when we danced in the barracks tunnels before launch. She takes my hand. Leads me to a tree. And there, carved in the bark, is my name. Just my name. Not my rank. Not my designation. Just Aiden. Maybe that's all I ever wanted to be. The war is over. The galaxy sleeps. But I'm still here. Waiting. Listening. Remembering. And when they come back, whoever they are, they'll find me. The last soldier of Titan. Sitting quietly in the dark. Keeping the fire lit.